so excited that you're all here. So I'm going to start here and think about what are some of the building blocks that has us think about moving towards flourishing and the foundations of flourishing in our lives. From there, I'm going to start to talk some of the practices or building blocks from positive psychology about how we think about building greater positive emotion and positive experiences in life, and ultimately this sort of state of eudaimonia, this sense of flow with all that is. And from there, possibly we'll see how we go, depending on the questions we've got from those coming onto the live. I might talk a little bit about some of the practices that I work with to continue to sustain and build my own thriving, to see my potential manifesting itself as I move through my own life. So let's start with Maslow's hierarchy of needs and some of the upsides and downsides of these earlier stages of getting the foundations and realizing what the foundations are in our own life and our own unfolding. So for those who haven't heard of and don't know much about Maslow and Abraham Maslow, he was a humanistic psychologist, as I said again, in the 60s and 70s, and he really started to unpack what were some of the foundational elements that led to some people having this idea or this experience of self-esteem and an internal locus of control, that sense of being behind the driver's seat, behind the steering wheel of creating our own destiny. And this internal sense of I'm in control of my own life versus my life is happening to me and I don't know where it's going. And this is one of the first foundations of flourishing. Is it's near impossible to have an experience of flourishing if we don't think we're in control of our own life and don't have a sense of destiny about our own future. And there are some practical building blocks that we need to have in place, and many of us will have in place already that really help us in this way. And this first one is this sense of survival. And this is a physiological or a body or a somatic type thing. These are elements around, do I have enough food? Do I have enough water? Am I physically healthy? Do I have enough sleep? And the more foundational elements of just being able to work through and make it through each day. Financial security, a roof over our heads, a stable job. And as I reflect on that, as I'm speaking with you in this conversation, these are some of the foundational elements around the world that are compromised, not just in developing countries, but in some of the wealthier countries too. There's instability of work, instability of jobs, therefore instability of income, not really knowing sometimes where the next meal is coming from. And this, if we don't have these fundamental survival physiological elements in place, it's going to be really nigh impossible to explore flourishing. Now, as we'll get to later in this particular framework, those of us who do have those foundational elements in place have a real opportunity to create those opportunities and create those survival physiological foundations for others as well. Because if we don't have these, then some of the outcomes of that, of not having the foundational physiological elements in place for survival, is high amounts of fear. And we can't experience fear and joy at the same time. Yeah, and Michelle was just asking, is COVID regressing us? And this is why, Mish, why I wanted to start at this particular location in this live, because my sense is, looking at global events and even my local neighborhood, the opportunity to really flourish and to realize the potential is always present to us in each moment. But many of us are compromised through COVID and other factors as well, that's resulting some of these foundational elements not being in place. And if we don't have these things in place, this element of, roof over our head, a safe place to stay, enough food in our bellies, enough money to make it and plan for tomorrow, we're going to be really struggling. And for many people in our society, and with deep compassion, this is a real challenge for many of us. The next element here is the relational, the psychological and relational elements of flourishing. And these are things like having strong, open, and ready access connections with family and friends, having that real sense that we are loved and we can love, sense that we have friends around us, someone we can talk to, supports that we can work with. These considerations that we belong somewhere. We belong to a group of people. We belong in our community. We have people who are loyal to us and who look out for us. And again, these are foundational elements of flourishing. If we have these foundational elements of flourishing, of family and friends and feelings of love and loyalty and belonging, then we liberate the next phase of our own psychological safety to explore our bigger and broader world. And if these things aren't in place, we don't think they're adequate, we may start to sense jealousy or blame or someone else's fault or they're not doing the right thing. And each of these interpretations around or obligations about how we're in relationship with other people, these judgments, hold us back from realizing our own potential and help and stop us from flourishing and really going to the edges of what is possible for us. If we're just trying not to be found out, of trying not to disappoint other people, of trying to work out what other people want from us and please each other people, we're really not living our own lives, we're living other people's lives. And that's this second foundation of building healthy relationships founded in unconditional love and acceptance. Now, this third piece here then is self-esteem. This sense that I have confidence and belief in myself that whatever I face in my life, I will be enough and I will have enough in order to be able to make it through any trial, tribulation, or challenge. This sense that I'm competent. I've got the skills needed to navigate my own life and to navigate the other people in my life. And this sense that I'm going to spend a little bit of time on in a moment, self-worth. If we don't have these elements of confidence, if we're not sure that we're actually able to navigate the world around us and that we have the skills to do it, then what tends to happen psychologically is we start to try and control other people. We try to have a sense of forcing power rather than that natural flow, and forcing and dominating and having authority in the world around us. We try and take charge. Now, the real challenge here as we take charge is that we stifle life's ability to work with us. Life being other relationships, life being community and our social environment, even the very fabric of life itself, the universe, can't work with us if we're trying to control everything. So this sense of confidence and self-belief and self-worth is critically important. Just last week, I was working with a client and we're making this distinction between self-esteem, that sense of confidence and self-worth. And I came across this quote by Christina Hibbert, who wrote a research paper on this particular topic. And she says, self-esteem is what we think and feel and believe about ourselves. But self-worth is more than this. Self-worth is recognizing that I am greater than all of those things. I am more than what I think, feel, and believe about myself. It is a deep knowing that I am of value, that I am lovable, and I'm necessary in this life. And I have incomprehensible worth and value. It's not just trying to fit in. It's starting to really recognize that it doesn't matter what happens or around me. I know that I'm enough and I know that I'm worthy. And it doesn't matter whether life's going up and down, I'm still okay. And these are the foundational elements. This sense of internal, self-initiated, self-developed self-worth is fundamental to flourishing. If we don't feel that we are worthy of love and that we're lovable, we can't help and hope to really step into flourishing. And this is this sort of cusp here of going from an external locus of control, that is, things are happening to me, and starting to move towards I am the creator of my own destiny in life. And when we start to think about this, we're moving to this element here that in Maslow's hierarchy of needs is self-actualization, he called it. This sense that I am self-transforming. This real sense that we've let go of our fears and we fully own our strengths and our limitations without trying to hold anything back, without trying to hide anything. And a sense that rather than running away from fear, fear may be the doorway to our next greatest discovery. This sense of owning everything about myself, you owning everything about yourself, and this lifelong learning and growth. Now, when we really think about what it takes to let go of our fears and to be fully owning of myself and my strengths and limitations in each moment, it takes depths of courage, a real sense of vulnerability with myself and with the people I'm with, the willingness to say, I don't know, can you help me? Rather than trying to control the situation and work it out for ourselves. This sense of we're in it together, and an intimacy, a sense of into me see. I see you, you see me for who I really am. No hold bars, no barriers, no trying to hold things back, no trying to protect things, just the authenticity of myself. If we stop there with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, being in a place where we fully accept the strengths, limitations, what's good about me, my inner critic, and all these elements, and I accept all of those things, then we may at that point in time have a sense of flourishing, right? But there's more to it than this, because Richard Barrett then extrapolated out this sort of sense of self-transforming, an agent and author of my own destiny, and started to take that to the next level. And here I start to draw upon the work of developmental psychology and developmental trajectories of human potential. We start to look at what then becomes possible. And this is this notion of thriving. When all of the foundations that make up this good life, this self-actualized life, this self-actualization, when they are all in place, what then becomes possible? Well, it's purpose. It's this sense of purpose in life, an inner coherence that I've got my life together. I've got everything worked out. I know my purpose and my passions. I have a sense of my own values, and I'm living with integrity around those values. I've got a sense of fully owning myself and authentically not trying to prove anything, just being who I am. And when that happens, we're not trying to control ourselves and be something else and actually truly being ourselves, then there's a sense of humor and fun and joy that comes with that. I was with some friends on a call just last week, and we started this conversation with some of the depths and breadths of the chaos going in the world. But even amongst all of that, we're having this conversation, and there was so much laughter and fun and joy. And as I was looked at, across the screen, this physical distance between myself and the other people, I realized I just don't want to be anywhere else other than in this conversation right now with these amazing people that deeply inspire me and fill me with joy. And this is this sense of, we're also talking about meaningful things, things that I personally care about, those things that I want to make a difference in the world around, that sense of purpose and passion. Now, when we're doing that, we find our purpose, we start to live our purpose, we take that sense of, I know how I want to make a difference in the world, and I start to make it happen, then there's a sense of creating connections with other people that are greater than the relationship itself. It's a calling. It's a sense of connecting with spirit and with soul. It's not just me and other people connecting. It's a sense that there's a higher calling, a deeper meaning or purpose that brings us together for something greater. And then there's this final element. We go from finding our purpose to living our purpose to being our purpose, where it's the very thing I cannot not do. This caring for humanity, this compassion and for humanity itself, and a real desire, sometimes personal sacrifice desire, in order to support a better world. And this is a move from not just finding my own flourishing, but creating opportunities for those beyond me and outside my even who I know to flourish as well. And for me, these are the foundations and the building blocks of which we live a flourishing life. We're not just creating flourishing, we start to live that flourishing life. Sense that we cannot not do something in life, we have to do it. When everybody has a sense of ownership and living their own life fully, then I'm able to do the same thing. Now, I think it was the Buddha that says that first end your own suffering, then end the suffering of the world. And in ending the suffering of the world, you also get to end your own suffering. And that's this sense of flourishing. Sense of I am deeply worthy, I am deeply lovable, and from that place, I radiate the love needed in the world for all of us to flourish. Now, that might sound great, but then the next question might be, sounds good, Rich, but how do you do that? That all makes sense, but how do I do that? How do I continue to create these opportunities to build and build and build and build to being our purpose? And in this instance here, there's being our purpose.